right, Deuteronomy 13, let's call this one, nor shall you conceal. And let's start it with a question this time, which is really just kind of a brain teaser or an icebreaker. But if you had to say, out of organizations that you can think of, whether it is a street gang or a major corporation, a government entity, or maybe even a private institution, secular or religious, what is one of the things that they would all share in common? Because the thing that came to mind for me is the shocking regularity with which more and more all organizations that really come to mind for me value loyalty and even secrecy above integrity. And it's an interesting contrast to what we see here in chapter 13, where God is dealing with the issue of false prophets. And he's saying, if a prophet or an individual, whether it's a family member or a friend who's extremely trusted, or even a city in your territories, is found to lead its people into a direction that's saying, look, there's another God and we need to follow him. They're saying, you need to expose it. And so ultimately they're saying, this isn't just a false prophet. They're saying, if it's a prophet that's been proven true, if it's a friend, not just some friend you're on the outs with, but a family member you love, and a friend that's going to describe that is as your own soul, or a city that's not in some foreign territory, but that's in your own territory, is involved in this. It's saying you don't get the option to turn a blind eye, but you have to do a diligent search to find out whether the thing is true. And if it's true, you have to purge the evil from your midst. So that's an interesting contrast, because now as believers, we have to deal with environments, whether it's in a work environment or a religious environment, or just in a family environment, where we are often tested by our loyalties, and our loyalties are often determined by whether or not we're willing to keep organizational secrets. And so we are looking at a chapter that's calling into question the degree to which we can fit within a culture that values secrecy over integrity and still be in a process that's transforming us to fit into a heaven where God is saying the priority is telling the truth. Why does that matter? Well, because by the time you get to the Gospels, Jesus is going to say something that has become very famous now and almost cliche when he said, look, if you are truly my disciple, you will understand the truth, and the truth will set you free. Later on, Paul is going to write in Romans that God's wrath is actually coming back to deal with those situations that are actually suppressing the truth, and people who are actually partnering in the suppression of the truth. And typically, because that verse comes in context with suppressing the truth of God, it seems that we as Christians put it in a box to say it's simply talking to atheists, but that's not the limitation that's really on that verse. It's talking about suppressing the truth before it goes on to talk about the truth about God as well. And so look at it from this perspective. If Jesus is saying that the truth is the thing that will set his people free, but we are in situations where our socializations are pressuring us to keep secrets, we have to ask ourselves, to what degree is my partnership in concealing the truth actually participating in keeping another person, especially another believer, in bondage? And so in doing that, we have some tough questions to answer. And so I'm offering this one more as a question that hopefully will raise some practical concerns. But in the way of counsel, I'm offering up, as I often do, as a prayer for me and a prayer for you, that God give us, one, at least the honesty and integrity to ask if we're being put in positions to conceal things that are actually prolonging the bondage and the suffering of Christians who would otherwise experience God's freedom if we stop partnering in concealing the truth. And then two, if we are in those situations and God is making it clear to us that we need to make a change, that we have the strength to make that change and stop anything that we might be doing to help conceal the secrets that are actually keeping another person in bondage in a place where God has promised them freedom, which is why we often say his best to you as you go forward in him.